The winter of 1944 was a brutal time for the German tank crews fighting on the Eastern Front. As the Red Army pushed westward, the Germans were forced to retreat, abandoning their tanks in the process. But as the war began to turn against them, many German tankers refused to accept defeat, and they made an astonishing decision to abandon their posts and flee to the west rather than fall into Soviet captivity. One such crew was the 5 men who abandoned their Panther tank near the town of Trembala in modern-day Ukraine. The Soviets wanted to know why the Germans had surrendered without a fight and what other secrets they could reveal. But the Germans refused to talk. They had nothing to say. In the end, the Soviets lost interest, and the Germans were sent to a labor camp where they spent the rest of the war. Their story is one of courage, desperation, and the will to survive. He said that he and his crewmates had been scared and confused. They had never seen anything like the T-34 before, and they didn't know how to stop it. In the end, they had made a terrible mistake that had cost them everything. In the final days of January 1944, the German 2nd Army Group was in full retreat. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human instinct for survival is strong. And sometimes the best way to survive is to fight to the death rather than surrender to your enemies. As the Red Army closed in, the 5-man crew of the Panther tank were ordered to destroy their vehicle and flee. For the Germans, surrendering to the Soviets was a last resort. They knew that if they were captured, they would be treated harshly. But the alternative, being trapped in a Panther with no hope of escape, was even worse. The crew had been fighting for over a year and were exhausted and demoralized. The non-commissioned officer in charge of the crew later recalled, "We were fed up with the whole thing. We were fed up with the Russian winter, the constant attacks, the lack of supplies. We just wanted it to be over." But when they emerged from the trees and raised their hands in surrender, they found that the Russians didn't want to take prisoners. The soldiers guarding the T-34 opened fire on the helpless Germans, killing 2 of them instantly. The remaining 3 were taken prisoner and thrown into the back of a truck. As the Soviets drove off, the wounded German looked back at their burning Panther and realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They should have fought to the death rather than surrender. The 3 surviving Germans were taken to a prison camp where they were tortured and interrogated. After the war, the German who had been in charge of the crew was interviewed about his experience. The story of the German crew who refused to ride the T-34 is a reminder of the horrors of war. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching.